We have a responsibility that we all know and that we all share. We use that as fuel to protect the world's critical infrastructure.
And everybody that I work with here believes the same thing that I believe, is that we're here to protect our way of life.
If you take a look at OpSWAT over its 20 years, they've consistently made bold decisions to protect critical infrastructure in ways nobody else has really thought of.
OpSWAT has a great solution for ensuring that no file entering the organization takes that organization down.
I was always fascinated about cyber threats. I found it challenging, complex, and exciting. And this is where our journey begins.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're thrilled to have you join us here today. My name is Matt Wiseman. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at OpSWAT, and I've got a very exciting session with some incredible industry experts for you to check out here. So today we will be talking about how we can redefine resilience. I know in IT, OT, and industrial settings, the topic of resilience when it comes to cybersecurity is one that we need to ensure that we're evolving, right? As threats continue to emerge, there's different topics, different changes. We need to ensure that our cybersecurity program continues to be resilient against those new and emerging threats. Now, this needs to be viewed both across IT and OT, and we're here today to explain to you some of the challenges that are facing the industry, how you can overcome them, and what deployments we've seen that are very successful that can ultimately lead you to become more mature in your cybersecurity program and find that cyber resilience that we're all looking for. So with me today, I've got some experts. If you'd introduce yourselves, that'd be great. Itai, would you like to start?
Yes, of course. Hi, everybody. My name is Itai Glick. I'm the VP of Products here in OpSWAT for peripheral media protection, and very excited to be here with you and share some info with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Colin.
I'm Colin Dunn. I'm General Manager of our Washington, D.C. office and a data diode subject matter expert.
Perfect. Szilard?
The name is Szilard Détol. I'm the product manager for our product called Managed File Transfer.
Awesome. So we're thrilled to have all of these very talented experts here with us today. They bring tons of experience working with IT, OT, and industrial customers to help them really find that resilient cyber program they're looking for. So a little bit about OpSWAT before we start. Our mission is to help protect the world's critical infrastructure. This could be a nuclear power plant. It could be high-tech manufacturing. It could be oil and gas. It could also be government agencies. It could be, any of these really critical areas that we rely on for our way of life day to day. And with that, we really focus on purpose-built technology and solutions for critical infrastructure. We have well over 500 engineers, over 20 patents, over 20 years of industry experience, and our goal really is to build things designed for critical infrastructure. We want them to be easy for the user, for the boots on the ground in your plants, facilities, or mills, but we also want them to be incredibly powerful, where you have industry-leading detection as well as reporting and management. You can see everything in one place. You're aware of the status of your facility, and all of this was built with industrial applications in mind. All right. So a quick overview of the platform, and then we can jump straight into the content. Today, we are on AirMeet. We're thrilled to have you here with us. If you look at the top corner of your window, you'll see that we have a chat function. We also have question functions. There's going to be polls throughout the presentation. Again, we'd love your input. We love that audience engagement. And we do have some resources for you available. So take some time, familiarize yourself with the platform. We can begin. All right. So let's start talking about file-based threats and how they can be a major impact to ICS and OT environments. We've recently done some reporting working with SANS, and we were able to find some pretty startling data here. We found that 58% of threats in an industrial environment were initiated through IT. When you look at this, you can often attribute that to using some sort of IT technology in an OT environment. Maybe permissions were too broad, but that's a massive threat vector that we need to ensure we have tools in place to prevent that sort of incident from occurring. We found that 33% of incidents were caused by internet accessible devices. Again, probably some gaps in policy, program, or procedures there, right? We should not have direct internet access to anything in a production floor. And startlingly enough, we saw 27% of threats came in through transient devices, right? Those were all the cyber threats you can pick up and put in your pocket, USB drives, vendor laptops, all of these things that, again, we rely on to go through and ensure that critical operation, but they also pose a massive threat. So we need to be sure that in our program, when we're building resilience in our industrial environment, we factor in something to deal with these three major attack vectors. Here, as we move forward, I want to take a deeper look into some of our attack trends, right? What's happening year over year? What are the changes? Immediately, the thing that stands out most to me is this 221% increase in the transient cyber asset attack. This is specifically referring to vendor laptops. It could even be employee laptops, right? Something you might take home, watch Netflix on, right? You're not supposed to, but we know at times employees who are on the road will do that. They might be downloading movies, sharing different things, and then bringing that broadly internet exposed machine directly into your plant floor. That is a disaster. It opens you up for tons of threats, and you need to be sure that you have some way to scan any type of new hardware before it's introduced to your control or secure environment. We've also seen supply chain compromise growing. The risk of removable media is ever present, right? We need to be sure everything you're bringing in is scanned. The old story of dropping some USBs in a parking lot obviously is very highly shared, but that threat isn't going away, right? We need to ensure you're scanning the laptop, scanning the USBs, and anything that's entering the facility. And ultimately, a lot of these decisions or actions will lead to an engineering workstation compromise. You need to be sure you have an industrial-ready cybersecurity solution to help prevent any of those incidents from occurring in your environment. So I want to take a second and look, where were we, where are we going, and what has the industry faced in the last little while here? We all know the story of Stuxnet, again, really the first true cyber physical attack, and how things have really progressed rapidly since. In the last few years, in Destroyer 2, Pipe Dream, and Frosty Goop all caused major impacts around the world. And this is something we need to look at, right? Just because our security program was fantastic and we felt that we had full coverage back in 2010, you're probably missing some gaps now if you haven't revised it. So we need to be sure that you're covering yourself for the threats that we've seen in the past years, but also what we've seen this year and going forward. So we've seen, again, this is a very small snapshot. I hate to say that, but there's a whole lot more threats than what we've captured here and different incidents that have occurred. But the impact of USB devices in these industrial facilities, the impact of exfiltrated files that shouldn't have been in there, to be pulled out of the site, insecure data transfers, all of these things really do lead to massive incidents, and you need to be sure that we have programs in place to cover this. Something that really stood out to me, we've seen that there was a 50% increase in ransomware targeting manufacturing over the last 6 months. This is a huge concern, right? Any of that downtime leads to direct business loss. It leads to reputation damage, all these other areas. So we need to be sure that you have these highly resilient technologies in place to prevent incidents like this from occurring in your environment. So what have we learned, right? When we take a second and you look back, there's definitely concerns around removable media and any sort of transient device. If you're bringing hardware into your facility, you need to scan it first. It should never touch your control network without being scanned and being checked for malware before introduction. Traditional firewalls really aren't enough, right? There's often gaps. There's human error, right? Software configurations can be done incorrectly. There's room for vulnerabilities. An industrial firewall can be great in a lot of applications, but there's also a lot of gaps. So you need to ensure that you have proper communication paths in place, and we'll share some of those strategies with you here today. And then traditional file sharing, right? Sending these files that you need for patches and updates, that's critical. It's a key part of our work. But having an unmanaged system really leaves you open for massive threats. So we want to talk about what you can do about these and really look at these challenges and how we can overcome them. Taking a bit of a different lens, right? There's obviously the experiences we've seen, the timeline of past threats. There's also ever emerging compliance. In the near decade that I've been in the industrial cybersecurity space, these things change constantly. And to try and stay on top of them and ensure that you have the right program in place is a real challenge, right? I know a lot of teams are short-staffed. You're trying to ensure that you have the coverage you need from a security perspective, but you also have to maintain compliance. And that's something that if you have a really strong partner, it can do a lot. To help you feel more confident that you're going to ensure that you're remaining compliant, and avoiding potential downtime, fees, or penalties that may be associated. Some interesting things here that I think really stand out to me would be the mandate to have more than one antivirus engine that many of these organizations look for, right? That means not just installing some old endpoint security tool and calling it a day, right? You need to layer technologies and layer tools, and we can help you with that through the discussion here. All right, so now we've got a view of the market, the landscape, where things are going, where they've been. We do really need to face the scary truth that OT assets were not designed with security in mind. The different plants that I've walked through, getting that time to sit down and go through customer sites. All of these tools were built to do what they do really well, right? If you're refining oil, everything in that facility is built to refine oil as efficiently and effectively as possible. The chances are cybersecurity wasn't top of mind of those manufacturers when these tools were implemented. There's different threats that can come in through files, different transfers, USBs, right? Security wasn't part of the program. So we now need to figure out how to layer that in over top. And that's what we're going to focus on here going forward. What technologies and deployments can help you solve these different threat vectors and find a solution for today and tomorrow. All right, so I'd like to get some feedback from you before we dive in with the technologies. What is your organization's biggest challenge in securing IT and OT operations? This is always an interesting question. Again, globally, where you're based, you may face different challenges. Your industry often plays a factor, right? There's different compliance mandates, different concerns that you're trying to adhere to. But again, the more that we learn, the more we can help you overcome those challenges throughout our discussion here today. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for your input. And with that, we can jump forward into our technology section. So a big part of my role is chatting with our customers, hearing what they're looking for and how to help them overcome these challenges, right? The whole first part of the presentation is what's the problem and how can we help? Let's talk about some of those strategies. An age-old story that I've heard is I have endpoint antivirus. I installed that a few years ago in my industrial facility. I'm covered from malware. It's a great tool. I'm glad you're layering security technologies. However, it's not a silver bullet. We found that on average for static file scanning in an environment, the average antivirus engine provides about 45% detection against threats. That's not nearly enough when we're talking about potential loss of view, loss of control, and a negative impact to your operations, right? This could be financial loss and a whole lot more. So, what can we do about that? Let's talk about multi-scanning. Hopefully, everybody here is familiar with this term. Essentially, what we're referring to is the ability to run multiple anti-malware engines concurrently. One engine isn't nearly enough. You do need to layer these technologies to get the benefits out of them. We've seen different implementations with well over 30 different anti-malware engines. Again, all of these tools bring different strengths. Some engines that are based in different regions actually detect threats out of that region more effectively and more efficiently. They'll find them before others. So obviously using big name partners is very important. But some of the smaller players also have their own niche expertise. So the more you can layer these tools, the greater value you'll get. In a recent Ponemon research report that we did, we found that 64% of organizations were either using a multi-scanning strategy today or plan to in 2026. Again, if this isn't part of your strategy, please consider it. This is an absolute must to ensure that you have more resilient coverage. The next technology that's rapidly growing is CDR. Hopefully everybody here has heard of this, but it is an absolute must when building your security program. CDR is content disarm and reconstruction technology. And what can be done there is actually removing potentially malicious code from files. This is key for preventing zero-day attacks and really finding unknown threats and malware. What is done is essentially regenerating a file. There's often JavaScript or macros that can be embedded in an otherwise safe document. We can strip those out, rebuild that file, and then package it up for use. There's no disruption to your workflow, but you're given a safe and secure to use file. Again, through the Ponemon study, we were able to find that 64% of organizations were using or plan to use this technology in 2026. Again, this should be a part of your program. When you're looking at deep CDR, looking at the number of supported file types is key, and you want to ensure that you have something that fits your program. This is absolutely critical for prevention of zero-day threats. The last technology I want to highlight here is a sandbox. The name's pretty descriptive here. Think of this as an area where you're able to almost let malware loose and see what's going to happen, right? That's a 100,000 foot view of how this technology works. But what you're really able to do is have a secure and isolated environment to analyze potentially malicious content. In our recent study, we saw that 62% of organizations are either using or plan to use this in 2026. Again, Endpoint AV is a good tool. I really do celebrate those that use it in their industrial environment, but you should be looking for a way to expand that with more modern threat prevention technologies. Look at multi-scanning, look at CDR, and look at Sandbox. The value they bring is immense, and they really do bring in a ton of support for you to prevent those new and emerging threats. Again, our Sandbox here at OpSWAT is incredibly efficient. It is designed to work in an air-gapped environment or well-connected, so you'll have benefits on both sides, and it is 10 times faster than a traditional sandbox. Our emulation-based detection is a real game changer and could be very helpful for you going forward. So let's talk about some technologies here. You really should be looking at how your device, how your posture is set up, how you're using proper prevention techniques, and then detection. So by layering these different tools, these different technologies, whether on-prem, in the cloud, air-gapped, or some sort of hybrid, it really is an absolute must to set you up for success. A real quick touch here on the MetaDefender platform. We have 8 incredible technologies built in, ready to go for use in industrial environments. And it's all about finding a way that really fits your environment, your setting, and your deployment. Whether that's in a kiosk to scan USBs, within a file transfer solution, it could even be on an endpoint, right? There's a whole bunch of ways to do this built into your storage or anything else. There's a ton of applications to ensure that you have the right detection where and when you need it. Let's jump into one more poll question here. And then we'll dive into some of the product experts, and you'll get a deep dive into the solutions, successful customer deployments, and how we can help you bring this modern technology into your industrial environment. All right. So next question will be, what drives your OT cybersecurity investment the most? Again, it's always a challenge. Different organizations we meet with. Some OT teams own their own budget. Others are dealing with an IT team that controls it. Others have a corporate security team, which I've seen to be pretty effective. Others may have investment driven purely around compliance. Some are looking for operational efficiency, right? And we've seen that in security programs. More modern tools allow you to move files more effectively and efficiently, and you can actually save time with the right security solution. Anyway, with that, I'll hand things over to the product experts. So I'll welcome Itai Glick here to take over and walk you through all the great values you can get with our MetaDefender kiosk.
Okay, everybody. Thank you again for joining, and thank you, Matt, for your wonderful overview and intro. I'm Itai Glick. I've been protecting organization for the last 20 years or so. And what I want to discuss today is how we protect organization from peripheral media, media coming into the organization that you need. And what we actually see is the more organizations try to protect themselves, the more they segregate the networks, and eventually they need to get data in. When they need to get data in, they're using tools like USB drives, which a lot of people thought is obsolete, but specifically for critical organization, it comes back and makes a show again. So let's talk about our portfolio. You can see on the screen an example of one of our products. This is our kiosk tower. The idea is to put a dedicated and isolated scanning device that everybody can use. On this device, all of the technologies that have been mentioned earlier, the multi-scanning, the deep content disarmament reconstruction, sandboxing, are performed on the device directly. Users enter their credential, they get the right policy, and in the end, we get a safe to use file. Let's continue to the next one. Now, we have a wide range of form factors that are available for you to choose from, starting from a full-fledged kiosk tower with multiple media types, high performance compute, giving you everything that you need, including a thermal printer to print badges for guests, end to end. This is one option. Then you can go to other options if you want something that is more in an IT environment, like a kiosk desktop. Or if you want something that really is for the field, going into the factory floor, scanning next to where you need the file. We have our kiosk mobile, which is a ruggedized tablet device. We have another item that is for areas where you don't have a lot of space, something that you can wall mount. In an industrial case, this is our kiosk mini. It comes with an i7 processor, a bunch of ports in it, including SD card and micro SD. And then we also offer an opportunity to take our app and install it on your hardware. It's something that we support as well. And finally, whether it's our hardware or your hardware, we have our kiosk stand to extend a desktop device or a tablet or a mini with more ports like DVD if you need it, a floppy drive, and even a lockable enclosure that you can put stuff in it and to scan them, go away, and then later come and pick them up. So we have all this type of solutions available for you to make sure that we fit what your organization needs. This is a typical architecture or use case that we have. Users coming in with a different type of removable media. They plug it into the kiosk. All the scan is done on the kiosk, and then the files are transferred forward. Now, there are different ways to transfer the files. One way is you learn later on is with a network diode or with a managed file transfer. But there is also a simple way saying, okay, I come in with a USB, I go with the USB. Now, in your organization side, you want to make sure that no other USBs that were not scanned would be introduced to the network. So we have a solution which is called the endpoint validation, a small agent that runs on the devices. And in cases where you cannot install or you do not want to install, or there is not even a support to install like a printer, we have our media firewall that connects via USB and validates that those files have been scanned. Finally, all this information is made visible to you in the My OpsWhat solution, where you can see all the files that the user being scanning, who is the top scanner, who brings the most amount of threats to the organization, and all in a very simple user interface. So if we summarize what we mentioned, we want to manage data flow coming to the organization specifically when they come from peripheral media devices. We want to have validation that everything is being scanned when introduced to the organization. Finally, we want to put a critical network in a different network to protect it from malicious malware and to not allow the introduction of malwares inside those devices. And everything needs to be managed in a single pane of glass. And this is why we have our MyOpsWhat. Next slide, please. Now, as I mentioned, our solution is not only for file scanning. It can also be a visitor management, because what we have seen is that organizations have a lot of visitors, and those are the ones that usually come with USB drives, SD cards, sometimes even the floppy device. And they need a way to make that file available. And we'll learn a lot more about the MFT later, about the managed file transfer later. But you start the same process. You go to the kiosk, you identify yourself, you get a guest ID saying the files would wait for you in this location. If you have the tower, this could be printed on it, including your name. So it's like your visitor badge as well. You can actually sign a disclaimer when you get into the organization, really like a guest management solution. And finally, the files would wait for you in the engineering workstation, which is connected to the managed file transfer. Okay, so we solved within this solution the struggle to manage visitors arriving to the site and arriving to the site with data they need to bring in. And when you don't want them even to walk inside your organization with that USB that could be containing malicious artifacts, you keep it at the door and you move the files inside the network. Also, we wanted to solve a problem which is unable to securely access files in critical networks. How do you access those files when you cannot plug in a USB drive into them? And we'll show also how the diode also supports you to provide that air gap functionality. And finally, we wanted to minimize unauthorized removal media on the premises of the organization. So our solution is Active Directory integrated for user management. You can actually say who are you coming to visit. You can say you can give a notification email when somebody comes to visit. We have full visibility and management with the My OpsWhat for all the files that have been scanned. Who was the guy scanning them? And finally, we have secure file transfer and media for production equipment using it.
Perfect. Thank you
Okay.
very much, Itai. And I'm excited to learn more about MFT later. So, with that, let's hand things over to Colin to take a deep dive into our diode offerings.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks, Itai. I'm Colin Dunn again, and we've talked about some technologies that can really, really reduce the threats and catch malicious code, malicious files before they get into your environment. But sometimes you need to take things even more seriously, and it's those situations where it might be, there's a regulation that says I'm not allowed to connect my network to the internet, or you've got a risk manager that says just can't take a chance. And if you're a billion-dollar factory that's been down for 2 months, you're talking a lot of money lost. And when it comes down to it, there's a lot of other technologies out on the market that might protect you from 99% of threats or 99.9% of threats. But what does that mean? It means you have a 1 in 1,000 chance on any given day of being attacked, of something being successfully getting in. That means that every 3 years or so, it's probably going to happen. So if the outcome of that attack or loss of life or massive loss of assets, these are times where you need to think differently. And that's where the data diode category comes in. And OpSWAT's got a family of data diodes that goes all the way from handheld devices that you can install at the edge to server-based diodes that can go up to 10 gigabits per second, scan the contents of those files, combine it with the best of MetaDefender, and make sure that not only are the files getting where they need to go, the streams of information going to where they should be, but that nothing's getting back in where it shouldn't be. And let's get on to the next slide and say, what is it about data diodes? Why do they have a place in the market? And why is that place growing rapidly? Well, traditional defenses like firewalls just aren't enough. As I mentioned, that 0.1% chance is just too high for a lot of really critical applications. And firewalls themselves, they're not going to protect you from unknown threats. And frankly, you can misconfigure them to be worse than having nothing at all at times. So there is the chance of misconfiguration. There is the chance that they will fall out of date, be unpatched, and even if so, not provide guaranteed isolation of that network. But resilience doesn't mean putting your head in the sand and unplugging everything. You still need to operate as a business. You still need to share data with your allies. You still need to get data out of the factory floor into the compliance department, into the marketing department, wherever it's got to go. And you can share that data without sharing network access and having a physical barrier to attack with OpSWAT's data diodes. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a physical barrier. On the next slide, data diodes use one rule to keep you safe. That rule is physics says that data only goes in one direction. And I'm talking about physics because we're using light to beam data from point A to point B with no light in the reverse. There's no physical way an attacker can send data in the direction it's not supposed to go. Sometimes that light is going across a fiber optic cable. Sometimes it's within the device, and we have some really clever designs that still enforce that full electrical and optical isolation, meaning that you can send data from the factory floor to the engineering department and nothing can get back in. Or you can ingest data from some legacy platform, pull it into a secure environment where in combination with other data, maybe it's classified, maybe it's sensitive, nothing is going to get back out. It's that physically enforced one-way pipe that you can count on to get data from here to there. But we do more than just send data in one direction. You've got to resolve the fact that the modern internet's built on handshakes and acknowledgments. And you might have some legacy systems that are expecting to hear back, hey, I got that packet. Well, our products are able to have that conversation on either end, whether it's in a 2-box solution or a single box solution, replicate that handshake, give acknowledgments where needed, and take that payload and send it in a one-way fashion. And we can also do some neat things that convert that data from, let's say, legacy Modbus into JSON. You can take unencrypted files and encrypt them in transit. You can do all of that while knowing that nothing is going to get back in. So on the next slide, the nice thing about the technologies that we have, like data diodes and kiosks, is that they work really well together. And it's not just in terms of the integration being really smooth and easy to use, it's a defense in depth strategy that can help make sure that not only did this portable media go through the scanning, has it been sanitized, but I want to make sure that even if I want to get those files into an environment, that the stuff in the environment never gets back out. So you can combine our diodes, our kiosks, our managed file transfer, and on the next slide, just an illustration of how these fit together. You walk into the nuclear plant, for example, you bring your thumb drive, put that into the kiosk and say, all right, all right, thumb drive, nice knowing you, you're not getting in. You push the data through the diode one way, and then you get it into the secure environment, and you make sure that file's going exactly where it's supposed to go using MetaDefender Managed File Transfer, which you hear about in a minute. But if you've got questions about our diode technology or others, please do reach out. And before we move on to the Managed File Transfer team, I believe we have one more poll question. Matt, you want to take it away?
Perfect. Thanks again, Colin. Again, if you have questions about diodes, we have an incredibly talented team here and a full suite of solutions. I've seen them used in near countless applications, regularly surprised with where customers need one-way transfer, so please don't hesitate to reach out. For this poll question here, how do you currently protect your IT/OT environments? What applications are you using? What tools, what deployments, what technologies? How do you have this set up? I'd be very curious to learn a little bit more about what our audience here is doing. So we'll take you a second here so you can submit your answers, and we'll keep moving on to our next product. Awesome. All right. Well, with that, let's move on to MFT and Szilard to walk through all the incredible technology that.
So in the following slides, I will introduce OpsWatt's MetaDefender Managed File Transfer solution, which is a secure, policy-driven solution for data exchange. You will see how it delivers multi-layered protection, visibility, and control to ensure safe and compliant file transfers across not just multiple OpsWatt services and products, but also solutions like email solutions and file transfers via APIs or between enterprise systems, helping your organization to prevent data breaches and maintain compliance with a high level of confidence. So if you move on to the next slide, please. Let's start by looking at the problems that we are solving with our MetaDefender Managed File Transfer solution. So most organizations already use some sort and some form of managed file transfer, but these legacy systems were never designed with cybersecurity as their foundation. They move data, but they don't secure it. That means that files can still carry malware, sensitive data can leak, and vulnerabilities can be exploited mid-transfer. In critical infrastructure environments, and Colin and Itai also mentioned these aspects, in critical infrastructure environments, that's a very serious risk. So this is where MetaDefender Managed File Transfer comes in, which is purpose-built to move files safely between systems, networks, and trust zones, securely, compliantly, and most importantly, also automatically. If we move on to the next slide, please. So Managed File Transfer acts as the secure backbone of data movement across IT and OT. From ingestion to destination, every file is verified, sanitized, encrypted, and tracked. So that means that we can guarantee the integrity and the trustworthiness of every file transfer, not just that it's reached its destination, but that it's safe to use when it gets to that before mentioned destination. This establishes a resilient, auditable data flow between corporate IT and operational technology environments. Now, on the next slide, what we see is a version of the Pro 2 model. And think about how data often moves between IT and OT or from low security to high security networks today through USBs, shared folders, or basic FFT transfers, which we still see a lot at our customers' premises. These create blind spots where you lose visibility of what's happening. You lose visibility, you lose control, and unfortunately, you are exposing your OT systems to unverified and potentially malicious files and content. The MetaDefender File Transfer eliminates this risk is by enforcing policies and verifying every file before it's actually allowed to cross a network boundary. And we will see on one of the following slides, we will see a use case where I'm going to explain how that actually works. So yeah, this is a much cleaner picture that you see right now. this is where the OpsWatt's ecosystem approach shines. So MetaDefender Managed File Transfer connects natively with other OpsWatt technologies like Kiosk and NetWall that we previously talked about. And together they form a sort of a complete secure file transfer workflow. Multi-layered security, as Itai already explained, and Matty also explained with core technologies, where you can pick and choose the technologies that you want to pull into your range to ensure that files are being scanned. And then, what we add on top of that is automated logic-based policy enforcements and full visibility and compliance. In short, what you get with MetaDefender Managed File Transfer is it orchestrates the secure movement of data across not just the OpsWatt ecosystem, but your whole environment. If we move on to the next slide. So Itai mentioned it previously, network segmentation is the name of the game. When integrated with MetaDefender, Kiosk, and NetWall, our managed file transfer solution creates an orchestrated and visible data flow from USB media scanning to cross-network delivery. And cross-network delivery, again, is the name of the game here. When you design your secure network topology, you segment. And what we do here and what we help you with here is through MFT is the secure passage through these network boundaries, always logged, always auditable, and always you are always in the driving seat in terms of who has access to which MFT node and who has access to which content. In short, MetaDefender Managed File Transfer orchestrates the whole secure movement of data across everything that you might have in your environment. So if we move on to the next slide, a couple of aspects I wanted to talk about, and I'm not going to deep dive into our scanning technologies. Matt and Itai have already done that. I want to talk a bit about visibility. One of the biggest challenges that organizations face when transferring files between IT and OT, between low and high security environments is lack of visibility. Not knowing what's moving, where it's going, or whether it's actually still safe. So with MetaDefender Managed File Transfer, we changed that by giving you a complete operational transparency. The dashboard you see here provides you with real-time insights into every file transfer, from the number of files processed to the threads that we prevented, and even data loss and sanitization metrics. And you can generate file security reports to see exactly what kinds of threats were stopped. And audit logs will give you traceability for every transaction, which is crucial for compliance and incident response if anything still manages to go south. In short, this isn't just about the moving files securely, but it's about having end-to-end oversight of all the file activities across all your networks. That visibility allows teams to proactively identify risk, verify compliance, and maintain control of data flow between IT and OT systems. And the other aspect I wanted to mention is compliance. Compliance is part of the of MetaDefender Managed File Transfer's design. It supports encryption, full activity logging, and role-based access control aligned with different frameworks, compliance frameworks, that is. Multi-stage approvals can be configured for sensitive transfers. And in this way, we always ensure oversight and traceability. So with MetaDefender Managed File Transfer, you turn your flows into compliance minus the manual burden with built-in automated processes that we offer in our solution. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Matt to wrap it up.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So we do really appreciate everybody joining us here today. Again, we hope that we helped you redefine what resilience looks like for your security program. You heard about some incredible technology, as well as some different deployments and products that could help you to really reposition your cybersecurity maturity program. I've added a few things here. The SANS 2025 report is something that we really thought had a lot of value, helps you understand, where the market's going, where others are, allocating some funds. And that was a great partnership working with SANS to pull that together. Again, that's all third-party research. That we worked on that with SANS. Again, fantastic stuff. We got some data sheets here for you, different ebooks. If you need other materials, again, they're all available on our website. We encourage you to reach out. Thank you so much for joining. Again, we appreciate your questions, your engagement, the polls. We hope to see you again soon. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much.
AI-powered cyber attacks are changing the world of cybersecurity, making traditional defenses easier to bypass. AI-driven malware is designed to learn, adapt, and exploit vulnerabilities in firewalls and other security systems. But a data diode isn't based on software. It's enforced by physics. A data diode physically blocks any incoming connection, meaning AI-generated attacks have no way to reach critical infrastructure. At the same time, industries can still use AI for predictive maintenance and analytics without ever opening themselves to risk. The smarter cyber threats get, the more critical it is to have defenses that they can't outthink. With a data diode, AI-powered attacks hit a dead end.